All right, moving on to EPIRBs. These are required on all commercial fishing vessels that fish more than 3 miles offshore. There's two types. There's Category 1 and Category 2. Boats that are under 36 feet have a choice of carrying a Category 2 versus a Category 1. So what's the difference between a Category 2 and a Category 1? Well, first, the Category 2 will come in a bracket for mounting inside the boat. This is not designed to be outside. This is actually kept inside near the operating station, and then if needed, then it is actually manually turned on by the operator. The other one, and the most common one you're going to run into, is the Category 1. This is designed to be mounted on the exterior of the boat. This is in case something happens and the boat sinks and the crew's not able to get to it and activate it. This will actually deploy by itself, float to the surface, and turn on without anybody having to push a button on it. So what does it look like? Well, when you open it up, you're going to see, "Tiny Coastie, what are you doing in there? Go find somewhere else to go take a break."
Can a person take a break around here?
As I was saying, the Category 1 EPIRB, designed to be mounted outside, comes inside this container. And here you will see a familiar piece of equipment. This is a hydrostatic release. It's the same type that's used on survival craft. And the design is that once it gets a certain distance below the water pressure will push on a diaphragm inside here, and it will actually cut this shaft and release the EPIRB. This is spring loaded here, and once this is cut, it will push the cover, everything out, and launch it out in the water. The EPIRB will come out and then just start floating to the top, and it will turn on. Whether it's Category 1 or Category 2, most EPIRBs will have a couple of sensors here that when they sense continuity of being in the water will automatically trigger it, and it will turn on without anyone having to flip a switch, and it will start transmitting. Which brings us to the next item on here, which is the registration. Each 406 EPIRB has to be registered, and the registration is good for 2 years. You register it for free through NOAA, and it'll have the number, so when you check it on board, make sure this number matches the number here on the EPIRB, and it'll have an expiration date. This way we know that if this thing goes off, we know who it belongs to, and we have the contact. Now the reason this is so important that we have this thing registered is because 95% of all EPIRB hits are actually false alarms. However, if we can't confirm that it's a false alarm within a certain period of time, we have to launch Coast Guard boats and aircraft to start looking for this thing. And even with the error of margin on these, if it's close to shore, let's say in a marina, the hit could still show up maybe 2 miles offshore. And then so we have to start looking and searching, so we're wasting valuable resources looking for something that's not an issue. So again, how much does it cost to register this? Nothing. It's free through NOAA, so there's really no reason not to have it registered. Okay, so you've checked the registration, it looks good. The next thing we want to check for is the battery expiration date. Now, depending on the manufacturer, they like to put it in different places. On this one, it's here on the side, and it tells me right here. This is when it expires. On this model here, you could be looking all over for it. Well, I don't know where it's at. Well, look on the back of the antenna mount, there's the date. This tells you right here when it expires. There's no standard for where that information has to be, so you may have to hunt around on it to find it. Now, another requirement for these EPIRBs is that they have to be tested monthly by the owner operator. Typically, they have a test function switch on there, and they actually have the test instructions clearly indicated on there. Now, there's no requirement to log it, but the way we check is we just ask them, "Hey, skipper, are you testing this monthly?" These things need to be tested monthly, but we should not be testing it. Unless you're an expert like me and know what you're doing and been working around these, you really don't want to mess with it because you don't want to have an accidental activation.
Excuse me. I said, excuse me.
What?
Fudge.
Call the CDO. We've had an accidental activation. Yes, Captain. Yes, Captain. No, Captain. I'm really sorry. It won't happen again. As I was saying, don't manhandle this thing yourself. No matter how much you think you know about EPIRBs, you don't want to have an accidental activation. In review, every commercial fishing vessel that operates more than 3 miles from shore must have a properly registered 406 EPIRB. Vessels that are 36 feet and under have an option of carrying a Category 2 EPIRB, which is mounted somewhere near the operating station and manually activated. Vessels over 36 feet have no choice but to have a Category 1 406 EPIRB. And in all cases, they have to be properly registered with NOAA. The registration is good for 2 years. It's free, it doesn't cost anything. They get a little peel and stick sticker that you put on the EPIRB itself. Additionally, you check the battery to make sure that the battery is not expired. It'll tell you the month and year when it expires on the EPIRB itself. And for the Category 1, you want to make sure that that hydrostatic release is not expired either. So you want to make sure that the month and year that's marked on there has not passed yet. These are marked with the expiration date, not the date that they were installed. And if it's not marked in any way or form, then we need to get verification such as a receipt. If they cannot verify that, then we consider it expired. Now that you've learned how to properly examine a 406 EPIRB, you could go out with confidence and examine them out in the field. And of course, if you ever have any questions, you could contact your local commercial fishing vessel safety examiner here at Sector San Francisco.